Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jason's Take On podcast series in the world of customer success. This is kind of our last one for 2019, which we're really excited about and kind of going into January and planning that. Today, we're going to be talking about how you create proactive customer success teams and processes, what that means to the team, to the business, and starting to look at why you often start as being reactive, how you then grow your teams, make them more proactive, what it means in terms of processes and people, and then how do you look beyond just the customer success team doing that. So a really exciting conversation. I'm really excited to have everyone here with us. Whereas, as normal with our podcast, we're aiming between 30, 45 minutes. It is a live podcast. There aren't any slides that we do, so it's just Jason and myself talking, having the conversation. If there are any questions that anyone has, please post them into the Zoom link. We will do our best to answer them here. If we don't answer them here, please post them in our LinkedIn group and we'll have a conversation there as well. Don't forget, if you are signed up for our newsletter, there is additional content that comes out. So if you've not already signed up, please do. And a reminder also that we've started our guest podcasts recently. I'm really lucky that we've had some fantastic guests with us recently, talking a lot around organization structures, product management. So if you or any of your colleagues, friends would like to join and be a guest, please do reach out to us, let us know. We're really happy to engage and do that. The guest podcasts are not recorded live, so they'll be recorded and offered through our replay as a standard podcast offering through all the normal podcast services there. And don't forget, if you're looking for any coaching services, please do reach out to Jason and myself. We're both able to offer those and talk you through any challenges that you have. Having said that, I'll kick off with a quick intro. So I'm Jason Noble. I'm based in the UK, in London, in Twickenham, which is just west of London, not in a sunny London today. I've been in the world of customer success pretty much all my career, though it's not been called customer success all that time. I've worked with a number of different startup organizations, enterprise level technology organizations, looking after customer service, customer support, account management, project management, service delivery, and then probably over the last 5, 6, 7 years, really moved into formal customer success roles as the world of customer success as we know it now has come in. I'm currently working as the VP of Global Customer Success for an American startup called Vinley, based over in Dallas, where I'm building out their European operation and also creating their customer success function. So a really exciting time there. Jason, quick intro from you.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Whitehead. I'm based in Washington, D.C., also not a sunny place today. Really excited to be here. And I've been in customer success and really user adoption for over 20 years as well. And I provide a variety of consulting and training services to both buyers of software, helping them set up their internal user adoption and internal success teams so that they really become an amplifier of their own success, as well as helping customer success teams and organizations selling on a subscription basis to build out their playbooks, strategies, develop their teams, and really make sure that their CS services are high impact and delivering the results they want. So it's great to work with both buyers and sellers and try and bridge the gap between the two. All right, Jason?
Yeah, well, as we do with our podcast normally, we'd like to throw out a challenge to you guys. And please do let us know through LinkedIn, through kind of email to us, what you're doing around this. So our Be Bold kind of challenge question for this podcast here is, what new, bold, dramatic steps will you take at the start of 2020 as we go into the new year to ensure that your customer success teams are proactive and also impactful in driving the success of your customers throughout the next 12 months? So we'd really love to hear your thoughts, feedbacks on that. But based on the conversation here, some plans you've already got, what are the steps, dramatic big steps that you're taking within your own organizations? And don't forget the things that we're going to talk about in this podcast here, why we need to be reactive to start, and then how you break out of that, or why we often need to be reactive, what the next steps are for your customer success teams to grow and to develop as individuals within their career, and how do you look beyond just the CSMs who are down in the trenches doing the work? What does it mean about the wider organization and the business there? Jason,
stuff.
I'll let you throw the first question.
Yeah, all right. I'm excited about this one too. So Jason, you and I've talked about this quite a bit. With existing companies, do we or why do we need to be reactive from the start? How come we can't just jump right into proactive mode?
I think it's a great question. It is something that I have seen in many, many different organizations, young, old organizations, big, small. And I think there is a need to be reactive in many cases to start with. So it's not necessarily the wrong thing to do. It often starts by a need to be reactive. And I think that goes down to, why has customer success been created in your organization? Quite often, it's because of a problem. It's there not as I don't like using the word afterthought, but if customer success hasn't been there from day one, there's been a problem, for example, churn, you might have problems with advocacy, and somebody's identified an issue and they need to create a customer success function, team, or even individual to come in and fix a problem and react to that problem. So I think quite often the reason for it is just there is a problem that's needed to fix. And I think you've got to look at executives, business leaders are not going to put the funding and resources towards building a solid customer success function until and unless they see a compelling business need and potential ROI from it. So again, it's reactive, and they're trying to react to individual problems, not looking at that strategic idea of what we're trying to do. And I think we all know that even today, there is still not a clear understanding across multiple organizations in the industry. Customer success, you could say there is, but when you deal with different organizations and even our customers, there isn't a solid understanding of what customer success is, particularly as you move into your C-level, exec level teams. And this is often the case. What you see is where the people leading businesses, your CEOs, have been told by investors that they need to start a customer success team for a variety of different reasons, churn, as I've said. And I think once you've fixed that problem as to why you've been brought in, that reactive problem, you are then very likely to either uncover additional problems, or other team members, other execs will ask you to resolve other problems because you've been so successful at resolving those ones. So I think it can be a vicious circle, and it can lead to being more reactive than it needs to be. And I think you might see broader problems with sales, with support, and when you can demonstrate the value of customer success, people ask you to try and fix those. So you've really got to try and break out of that being reactive cycle. I think when customer success is there from day one, it's often that customer success is created without a leader. Quite often, your initial customer success function starts with CSMs on the team, but without the leader that can give them that specific direction, leadership, vision as to what they're doing. And again, they may feel a little bit lost, your CSMs. They may just be being reactive, doing what they're told by someone who's leading a different part of the business. And again, not sure how to break out of that loop and be proactive without someone giving them that direction. And I think, again, without that right leadership from a customer success point of view, that becomes a vicious circle and a very difficult one to break out of. And again, it starts just being reactive. So I think there's a need at times for it to be reactive, and different numbers of cases there. And I think, particularly if you look at existing organizations that have been around, but the biggest challenge is, how do you then break out of that just being reactive mode? I've talked a lot in that point about existing companies, but I think to your point, Jason, does this model need to continue in the future? And what about with new companies, with a company that's starting from day one, and you've got the kind of luxury or privilege of starting success from day one? Is it possible to be proactive from that start?
I think absolutely. And I think, future businesses are really going to embrace customer success as a philosophy and as an operating model from the very beginning. And, we're still early days in customer success. And when I look back even over the past 4 or 5 years in the field, how much it's evolved very, very quickly, but still how much farther it has to go. But I think what we're going to see going forward is that people are going to be more proactive from day one. In new organizations, you've got younger leaders, new startups coming up here who really, they're not ingrained in the old ways of working, and they haven't been, those of us with 20 plus years of experience, we've seen a lot of stodgy stuff, and new leaders today are questioning a lot of things. They're embracing new technology, and they're like, well, it doesn't have to be this way. What are some new operating models, new ways to run our business? And I think they're going to approach it very differently than in the past. And I think you'll see, in future organizations, they're really going to see the need from the very beginning to build and integrate customer success into everything they do, from how they structure incentivize sales, really getting salespeople to move just for new logo to how do I get new logos and keep them for the next 20 plus years? How do I sell for renewals from the very beginning? How do they include it in product management and product-led customer success? And, Jason, we had Dave Jackson on the other day, and he shared some great approaches and tips about why that's such a an opportunity and way that CS will probably evolve in some future. And then also, how in the future are we going to have high impact customer success services and that are really competitive, that's a competitive differentiator for them, because the buyers of tomorrow are also going to demand different things. They're going to say, hey, I'm not just buying features and functions, I'm buying a business outcome. You need to show me how your product and your services and your customer success team get me that business outcome that I need. And if you can't do it and your competitor can, that's where I'm going. So I think there's really going to be a lot of change in the future, and I think if you imagine what that's going to look like, we're going to be really impressed. And one of the other things too is I think more and more investors today are looking at, do you have your customer success team in place? If you want that next round of funding, show me that you're already ahead of the churn monster. Show me that you're addressing this and that it's not going to be a problem, because I don't want my valuation diluted. And in fact, I actually spoke with one organization not too long ago, and they were looking at a potential acquisition or becoming acquired, and the investors actually backed out of the deal and said, your churn number is just too high. So now they're investing in customer success because they're realizing that, hey, no one's going to buy my company, or at least not at the multiple that I need until I get this under control. I should have done this from day one. So I think there's a lot of future there. And the other side that I see is you get business leaders today that are seeing investing in customer success, and they're seeing the positive impact in the revenue on churn. When they move on to their next startup, they're going to apply these lessons learned from the very beginning, and they're going to get way ahead of this. So I think, in the next 5 years or so, you're going to see a real shift in new businesses about how they approach it, and just how much they've really embraced customer success from day one and feel the need to get this right, to grow their business. So those are just some of my thoughts. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that as well too?
Yeah, I like the way you've kind of talked there about it's when customer success becomes more than just a team, and it's part of what we're trying to do as a whole business. And I think we are continuing to see this, I like to think of it as an upward trend where customer success is being thought about more and more from day one. And it isn't just CS leaders, CS teams that are talking about it, but it's external people. Mm-hmm. It's investors, it's sales leaders, it's marketing leaders, it's external organizations that are interacting with you, it's our competitors. So I think we're beginning to see this trend and shift, and it's great to see.
Yeah, it is. And to your point too, I think as future sales leaders move from whatever companies they are today to their next startup, and once they've been able to see how a customer success team can help them close a deal faster or expand an account, they're going to be pressing for it as well too. So I think Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting shift.
Yep.
So Jason, with that as a backdrop, what are the problems with being reactive? I mean, why is this such a bad thing? And what are the risks if we don't become proactive?
Yeah, it's a great question here, and one that we've spent a long time thinking about. But being in many organizations, I can think of probably the last 4 or 5 organizations I've been in where I've come in as a CS leader in the existing team, and there is a need to be reactive. So you've come in for a specific reason. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think the problem is stopping being reactive. And I think if you are just being reactive, you are focused quite often on the wrong things. You're focused on more the symptoms as opposed to the cause of the problem. Mm-hmm. And you're focused on specific individual things like preventing churn or addressing particular areas of churn. And you're not looking at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture for your customers. So how do I drive more value for our customers? You can also, while you're working in a reactive mode, you're at the beck and call of your customers. If your customers say jump, quite often the answer is how high. And you just, because you start thinking that the only way to do this and do it well is to do everything my customer asks me to do, and you've got to break out of that cycle. There's no ability to plan around it. There's no ability to think more strategically, and it becomes a really big time suck for your whole team. So your team can't tell you what they're doing on a daily basis. There's no planning. There's no bigger picture thinking as to how do we do this? How do we introduce more value into the accounts? And quite often the only way to scale customer success when you are working in a very, very reactive mode is to just throw more people at it. You really can't focus on what the business wants to do. One of the big challenges you've got is when you're being reactive, everybody's tending to do their own thing, and in multiple different ways. So you're not thinking about, how do I standardize processes? Do I need to do this process? How can I get other parts of the business to help doing this? And you're not being competitive in the future market. Your customers are really looking at vendors who can provide them with value. They want the product to work. They want you as an organization to deliver more value and help them grow. And they know that you can't do that just by being reactive. And if they've got a problem, just phoning you up and saying, fix this. They want to use the real parts of the organization. They want to have a customer success program that's got testimonials, use cases, advocacy that backs it up. And ones that only have reactive programs, only responding to problems, just don't have that information. They can't help with sales. They can't assist the bigger part of the organization, and they can't drive that value for customers. So I think that's a real big challenge. That focusing on the bigger picture as well. It's the bigger picture for you as a business, but also the bigger picture for your customers. Why are my customers using my services? What are we delivering for the customer? What are the outcomes and values that the customers are needing and getting from us? What are their needs? How do I drive more value? And I think if you are caught down in the trenches doing reactive work, nobody's being able to spend time looking at that strategic way of thinking. And I think that the biggest challenge is you just cannot scale cost effectively. You can't be strategic and you can't be competitive if you don't break out of these trenches. And in an organization I was at for a few years back, I came in as the CS leader. They had a group of customer success managers all doing the same thing, all being very reactive, just trying to fight churn, fight support problems that are dealing with their product challenges. And they were all kind of keeping the fires at bay, but not driving more value. So we went through some big organizational changes that helped do that. So it very, very much is a common problem that I've seen in multiple organizations. Jason, I'll ask you, based on kind of that train of thought there, how do you change this? How do you shift from being reactive? We've talked about the need to and why it's critical to do it, but how do we become more proactive and what do we start doing?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one for a lot of people. And, I think the first thing is to get yourself in the mindset that this is going to require some bold action, and it is going to require some major shifts, because you can't just sort of wish and hope your way through it. That's not going to work. So I think one of the first things is making sure that you have the right CS leaders. And if you're, do they have the experience and the philosophy and the outlook to be proactive? Can they drive that in their teams? And this is both like the head of the CS group, but also if you have, leaders in your CS group who are managing teams below them, are they the right people in the place that are going to do that? And if you're the CEO, be really careful who you select to head your CS group entirely. Make sure they are a visionary who has the confidence and the ability to pull it off, and the charisma, because this really is an important thing. And if you are, depending on the type of leader you are, you're not going to berate your team into delivering, this kind of proactiveness. That you've got to be a very positive leader who can get that across. But then I think you need to look at some structural elements. Where does CS report to? Where does it sit in the organization? If they're reporting to sales will always be the priority, and it will be a very different type of CS than if they are out there reporting to operations or reporting to someone else, or reporting directly to the CEO or chief customer officer. So really think structurally, is your CS team in the right place? And really, how are they measured and incentivized, and what are you looking at there? Do you have the right pieces in place that you're really asking for and rewarding the right behaviors? Because this is a behavior change for your staff. And what are they doing? Where are they spending their time? And are they doing the right things here? And this is the devil's in the detail. Are you able to track what type of activities they're doing? Are they taking proactive outreach to customers, or are they really just firefighting mode? And what does that need to be? But really analyze those activities. And then when you find something that's not right, figure out how you're going to change that expectation with customers, how you're going to change how your CSMs handle it. Do they need to be redirecting calls to support that they previously have been handling themselves? Do they need to stop doing too much analysis that's not adding value and get on calls more with customers? Where should they be? Do they have the standard processes, and are they using them? And are those the right processes to be proactive? Are they tracking when they have taken proactive steps? I'm working with an organization right now that we're looking at sort of their activity tracking for their staff to say, what's the correlation or prediction here between where they're spending their time and the impact on customers, expansion and renewal? What does that look like? Are they doing the right things? And what can we look at there? And then I think also, you really need to look at the individuals in your CS team, make sure they have the right skills and attitude and mindset to do this, because this is not easy work and it's not for everyone. And I've seen time and time again the mistake where organizations will change someone's title or move people from support into success, and it just doesn't work. They're just people who are not comfortable being proactive. So making sure you have the right folks there. In fact, when we had our guest Mona Yost on, she was sharing how when she transitioned the team, she changed their job descriptions and expectations so much that she had her staff reapply for their positions, and not everyone made the transition. But as a result of that, she had the right team in there with the right outlook and skills, and they were very excited to be there. And the performance over this past year has been really great, she's indicated. So I think taking concrete steps and bold action is going to be where it's required. So this is not a moment to be shy. So those are some of my thoughts. And along those lines, if we're talking about this transition, Jason, question for you, what is the impact on the CSMs, and how does this help them? What does it mean for their careers?
It's a really key point, this, and I think you're looking at different people. You really are. Not everybody, as you said, can make that transition from being reactive to being proactive. There are some people that are more aligned to being reactive. They've come from a support background. It's how they work, right? And they can't make that step. So I think bearing that in mind, it is potentially and can be a huge career development opportunity for the right people. You're asking people to take on more responsibility. You're asking them to be more well-rounded. They need a much better grasp of what the other areas of the business are doing. They need the ability to lead customers, to speak to customers, to give a voice to your customers, and to make sure that that CSM can represent that internally. Mm-hmm. I think that the collaboration piece internally is really critical. As a proactive CSM, or as your CS organization and function becomes more proactive, you will absolutely work as a facilitator across the business internally, working with your product team, working with your sales team. And you can't be that kind of person that just sits there and waits for things to happen. You need to get out there and understand what's going on in this area of the business. Why is this impacting me? So you've really got to think about that. And it does really only work for the right people. As you said, there are some people that can't make that transition. And it's not necessarily a small number. And the proactive CS role isn't for everybody. So you may see some big changes and people leave as you make that shift, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it requires you as a CSM or a CS leader to be more comfortable, to be more confident in working in a different way and engaging your customers in a new way. And the great thing here is that as you grow in confidence, your customers will grow in your confidence, your ability, your colleagues will. And I think that is just a really great all-round career development opportunity there. You absolutely need the right people in the organization that can make this shift. You need to know that people can move from being reactive to proactive and help them take the business on the journey. This isn't something that you as the CS leader are doing in isolation. You need your team to help bring the business along, but also help bring the customers along, which is even more important. I think if you have people that who can't make this transition or don't want to make this shift, you don't have to set them up to fail. There are other ways of them transitioning. They may transition into a different role in the organization. They may move more into a support role, for example, or they may make a decision to leave the business, but you can help them on that opportunity. And that, again, is potentially a good growth opportunity for people. If they've reached the kind of limit point as to where they can grow within your organization, moving externally to further develop their career is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it is a real positive outlook for the future role of a customer success manager. As I said, it's a real big role for kind of taking on more responsibility, a bigger rounded ability to deliver to your customers. But it allows you as an individual to start being more aware of the other areas of your own business and learn more about those, to have a better understanding of how sales works, of how marketing works, of how support works, of how product and development works. So you get the time, an opportunity to collaborate a lot more with these other teams, and you get to build up your own really fantastic knowledge and understanding of how your business works, and ultimately why your customers are engaging with you and why they've bought your services. And I really do think that there are very, very few roles that offer that same level of exposure and insight into how your business works. So it's a phenomenal point to grow, for you to grow as an individual, grow your understanding of how customers and businesses work, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. And I think in the future, you're going to absolutely see, and we're beginning to see it now. I think if you look at a lot of my posts on LinkedIn, I love jumping and shouting when I see new promotions of people moving into chief customer officer roles. And I'm so excited to say that trend continues to grow. It's continued to grow throughout this year. We're now seeing it in different organizations, in different industries, but also globally, not just in the US, which is really exciting. But I think we've already seen a number of leaders in CS roles who've moved into very senior leadership roles, like your chief execs. And I think that is going to continue. And I think people who've got background and experience in customer success, absolutely, I think it opens up a lot of doors for you. And we're going to see more business leaders from your CEO level really coming in with a background in the customer part of the business, understanding customer centricity, which I think is a really, really good thing to do. And I think it's, they get this exposure to what makes their customers successful. They get this exposure to what their customers are saying, what the market's saying, and how their business works. I think it is a really phenomenally exciting place for them to move into other roles. I'll throw the next question back to you, Jace, based on kind of the theme there. How do you once you've made this transition, you've got the right team, you might have had some changes in structure, some people may have transitioned out or into different roles, but how do you know when you've made the transition, and how do you know that you are being proactive, and how do you know you made the shift? But then what happens next? So once you've done that, how do we improve from there? It's not the end.
No, it's not the end. I think this is one of those things where it's a tough question to say, have we done it? What are the signs? Because I don't think there's a specific KPI that will say, yes, this is, our proactive index, and it's meaningful, and for it to be meaningful. But instead, I think you'll be able to observe a lot of different behaviors in your organization, both within your team and beyond. One example is I recently spoke to a CS leader, and she was saying how they were transitioning their team, and over the past year, they've made a lot of structural changes and asked for different behaviors. And she was watching one of her most junior CSMs that she didn't expect to really rise to the occasion so quickly, engaging with the customer, where the customer said, look, we're not using it. We're not renewing. This is just what it is. And where other people in her team had previously just said, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. We really appreciate you. Let's keep in touch. And it just didn't try to save them. This CSM really said, well, wait a minute. Let's talk about this for a second. If you'll promise to work with me to really embrace adoption, can you give me 24 hours to really find out what I can do from a sales perspective to make sure that the number fits your budget and is going to work with you? And then let's really figure out how we can work together to solve this problem, because we can do great things here. And this person was so proactive, and none of that was in the script. None of that had been laid out for how to do it. This person just took the initiative and did it on her own. And the client renewed it, and she saved this very major account just by flipping the script a little bit and taking a chance, knowing that she had the support of management to do that, and that was what was desired. So I guess one way right there is you will observe behaviors like that in your team, and you can point to them, you can recognize them, you can celebrate them, and hold them up as an example for everyone else and say, this is what I'm talking about. This is what it looks like on a practical basis. But then, I think some other things here is only when you're proactive can you really be truly effective. And I think when others in your organization start to recognize the impact and the effectiveness of the customer success team, that's when you're going to see other behavior changes, like your role becoming more strategic and getting other people in the organization to ask for your feedback and suggestions about what's right for the customer. You might get an exec team wanting to understand the risks around churn and risks around customers and some other things that they can do. And not just give us the numbers, but really, how do we prevent this problem? How do we get ahead of it? What are some things we can do that we didn't know to do in the past? And you probably get a lot more questions from customers. And why is it not just why is this a problem, but how do we do this? How do we be more strategic using your product to get value? And you might be asked to collaborate more with other areas of business like sales and product and other areas there. So I think there are a lot of things that you would see there, but there'll probably be behavioral in that regard that really say, hey, we've done a lot of steps, we've moved some things through, and now we're seeing different patterns of how people are engaging us and wanting our help and wanting our assistance. And those are really probably the big things. So those are my thoughts on that. I do know we are a bit tight on time today. So I want to go ahead and ask everyone, if you'd like to share any questions right now, please feel free to type them into the chat, and we can go ahead and we will address them in the LinkedIn group, or you can go ahead and put them in there directly. But Jason, do you want to take and give us some closing thoughts and finish?
Yeah, well, we can. I think we've had one question here that I think would be a good one to answer. The question came in ahead of the kind of podcast. And it's, if you're joining a company that's already started a customer success team and you're brought in to lead and develop it further, one of the challenges that you get right up front is, how do you build a relationship with the existing team? And there might be some of the people in the existing team that are stuck in the mode of, we've always done this. So what are some of the strategies that you can begin to look at to build a relationship for change as you create more proactive process? And I think that really feeds in nicely to what you're just saying, Jason. I think this, for me, I've seen this challenge in many organizations, and it isn't just isolated to customer success. Any role that you go into as a new leader in a team, you are faced with that. The guys aren't used to you. They don't know who you are in the team. So you've got to really, I think, build your reputation up very quickly. You've got to spend time listening to the team. I'm a great believer in going out there, doing all your one-to-ones with the team, understand what their challenges are. What do they see as the big problems? What's been missing? What's worked right? What do they want? So really that investment in understanding the individuals in your team and where they fit in is really critical to do. And I think you've got to get the buy-in for your team into what you're looking at doing. So once you've done your series of one-to-ones, your conversations, put together a vision, a plan, the kind of why you're doing this and how your team can help you do this. You've really been brought in to lead the team and get the team to the next level. There's been a challenge. It may be that a leader's left. They need to kind of elevate the team to being more proactive away from reactive. As I said, it's a situation that I was doing exactly that a couple of years ago. But you've got to share with your team what you're doing, why you're doing it. I think that is super critical to get them on board with you. There might be some, as you said, Jason, that aren't going to stay with us for the whole journey. But that's all right. Help them understand what you're trying to do. I don't know if you'd have any other thoughts, Jason.
Yeah, and I really like what you said too about, you're brought in to be a strong leader and signaling to folks that, you were brought in to help change the situation. So you're going to be making some really bold and direct changes. And, I think back to the podcast where we had Mona Yost on. So if you haven't listened to it, guys, I encourage everyone to go and check it out. And, she's such an inspirational leader to me. And she actually came in and spoke at our DC meetup. And, she shared with some of the steps that she took and some meaningful changes there, like changing the job descriptions and partnering with HR to significantly say, this role is different. How do we come up with a role? And then get the team to reapply and re-interview, because, just because they're in a job today doesn't mean that it's a job that they would want tomorrow and that you would hire them for tomorrow. So if it has changed so significantly, figure out the right way to make clear that transition. And for those who choose to stay, fantastic, and are able to make that leap. You've got a great team with a lot of good knowledge. And for those who the new role isn't quite a mix for their career objectives or their skills, like we said, don't set people up to fail. It's better to just have a tough and direct conversation and help them find a way to get into a position either in your organization or somewhere else that's going to be the right fit for them. And I think you said, listen to the team and find out what they see as the challenges, get their commitment to it, and really get them to plan into their vision is really important. But then coming to what are those actual steps you're going to take? What are the new processes? What is going to be different? What's the new playbook? How can you show the way we did this business before and call out, this is how we do it today? Here's what's new. How do you recognize those behaviors? Like we talked about the woman who was able to save the account, celebrate that, share that with everyone, say, hold it up as an example so people know what to do. And then also reaching out to other departments to like sales and marketing and product to explain, this is the new role and function of this department. Here's how we're different. And then back that up with, and here's how we're going to engage you differently than we have in the past. And that will take time. That's an evolution. So I think there's some things like that. And then also paying attention to what's working and what's not, because this is always a big giant experiment. Conduct the lessons learned reviews, figure out what's working, and then make some shifts along the way. So those are just a few of these things that I think can really help.
It's such a key question. It's a really good one to kind of ask, because you see it time and time again as a CS leader. You're moving different organizations, different teams. They've got problems. They've been reactive. And so you've got to get them on your side. Guys, if there's any other questions, please do reach out to us directly or post them in the LinkedIn group. We'd love to engage and have a conversation with you there. But look, just a kind of a recap as to what the bold question was, and we'd love your thoughts on this. What are the new, bold and dramatic steps that you're going to take as we go into 2020 to ensure that your customer success teams are moving to be more proactive and being more impactful in driving the success of your customers over the next year? So do let us know this. We're really excited about 2020 for ourselves. So we're looking at kind of making a few changes to how we do our podcasts. We're going to move away from doing more live ones and do them more as traditional podcasts, which hopefully will allow more people to listen and fit around your own times there. We know there's some big challenges with different timers that we've done. We want more guests coming, so please do let us know if you'd like to join us on a future podcast with any topics. And also let us know what topics you want and what questions you want answered. You know, we've come up with kind of a plan as to what we're going to be talking about next year across the year in our different podcasts, and we'll share those with you as we go into January. But we'd love input from different people out there. So you guys have got the experience out there. What are the challenges you're seeing? What are the things that we can talk about and share our experiences to help you? So a massive thank you from me. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us over this year as well. We've really loved doing these podcasts. We're excited about doing more for the next year. And from me, a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year for everyone. Jason, a few closing words from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been great fun. I've loved all the positive feedback. We love the questions. So as we're changing our format, please make sure that we'll be figuring out ways to ask your questions in advance and to follow up. And we really do love all the guests that have come on. We're looking for a lot more next year. So if you know someone, please let us know. And thank you so much for joining in with us. It's been an absolute thrill, and we're really looking forward to next year. So enjoy the holidays and have a wonderful new year. Thanks, everyone.